but still it's a great remembrance. So moving along here to the right, you see the Brass Rail Saloon, but actually if you were to go in there, it's still part of the Opera House. And this one area right here, as goofy as it sounds, serves a lot of memories for me, because every year this is where we would take our family picture. And it actually used to say Brass Rail Saloon on the window. You can kind of see a bench over here. Well, that bench was over here. And every year we would take our family picture, starting from, I think, 1965 maybe, up until 1977. And then whenever we would come up here sporadically, we would still take pictures here as well. Moving along to the right, where you see Meg's Boarding House. This is actually what used to be known, and maybe it still is known, as the Pioneer House. And you can actually stay here during your vacation as well. Good news is that is still standing. So there you see that. Moving across here, we have the livery stable, and if we take a look at some of these wagons here, I believe at one point in the 60s, they would actually roll these wagons out through Pioneer Town, and you can see just how sad a shape they are. I don't think anybody's touched them in probably more than a quarter of a century. And as we move along here to the right, you see some more things that we just sort of have for shop. Back there in the background, you see the Pioneer Chapel, which, although they don't have regular church services there, I believe you can still have a wedding there if you would like. And looking on the inside of it, also you can see it's decorated like an actual church. And I want to say they built this, I'm going to guess about 1976 is what I'm going to guess. So I'm going to kind of move back here, because there's another part here that has kind of a lot of memories for me. I was telling you about the shows that they had in the Opera House. They used to have a couple of outdoor shows on different nights of the week. They had what was called the Medicine Show, which was more of a country western outdoor show, filled with humor, filled with music. And you can see what's left of the stage. It's only a shadow of its former self. And this was Tuesday and Saturday nights. A lot of the same people that were in the gay 90s were also in these shows. Both the Seekises that I talked about, Willie Higgs, again with the same jokes every year. And I don't remember the main guy's full name, the guy who played Dr. Hugh Skinnem. First name was Spencer, that's all I remember, but he was a big part of the show. And down here they used to have all sorts of benches where you would come and watch the show. And up there in front of where one of the lodges are, they used to have these wagons that you could sit in as well to watch the show. And I really couldn't tell you how many people that they had that would come and see each of the shows. You know, when you're little, everything seems so magnified. But I want to say there was probably, I don't know, 50 people that would come each time. And it's interesting because I have to share one little story about this, because it's kind of ironic when we think about the flood damage that happened recently here. But one year we were up here in a reunion, I want to say it was 1983, and we were planning on coming to the Medicine Show, and it was raining during the day. And I remember we were thinking, well gosh, I wonder if they're going to have the Medicine Show because it's raining. And they went ahead and they had the show, even though it was still a little bit drizzling. And I remember the senior Mr. Seekus coming out and kind of putting some cardboard over the microphones to protect them. But I remember the next day we were talking to one of the Seekuses, and we said, well, what do you do with the Medicine Show when it rains? And you know what they told us? They said, well, gosh, we don't know. It's never rained. And we said, never rained? You're kidding. You've been doing these shows for 25 years, 2 nights a week every summer, and it's never rained? And they said, no. So it just goes to show you, when it comes to rain here, they just don't get a whole lot of it. And that's kind of what makes the whole flooding that happened a little bit more sad. So anyway, there's a couple other places that I'm going to show you here in Pioneer Town. I'm going to stop the camera and I'll start it back up again when we're over there. So what you're actually seeing here looks like a great big picture of nothing. which in fact it is, but the reason that I'm filming this is because at one time, and I want to say it's where I'm filming, but I'm only about maybe 90% sure, they used to have actual horseback rides here. And they had a little stable of horses, and I was very little, so I never went on any horseback rides, but my father and my older brother and sister, and my older brother and sister were significantly older than I was. They were about 10 years older than I was, but they would always go on horseback rides at least one day a week. And of course my mother, you could never get her on a horse, forget that. So that was usually my mom's day and I to hang out together, and so usually we'd sit in the cabin and play cards or something. So, but for a long time here they had horseback rides, which was really nice. And then something else that they had, they used to have train rides. And you can kind of see the old, beat up, dilapidated train station. But for many years they had train rides, and those were so much fun to go on. And I want to say it was Raymond Sekas, who again I think was the oldest child. I could be wrong though. He seemed, I think he ran this too. He did an awful lot here, as I recall. Somebody mentioned to me that he was the one that sort of ran the arcade that we looked at. And I mentioned to you he was very, very active in both of the shows. And he was such an animated person, as I recall. It was always so much fun. And whenever he did a little skit in the gay 90s, and he would always ask for a kid to come up to do a card trick with him. And one year I got to go up and do the card trick with him. And I remember after the show was over, probably about an hour later, they were still having train rides. And I remember taking a train ride, and Mr. Ray Sekas was taking tickets, and he looked at me and he gave me a big old smile, and he just had such an animated way of talking, and he said, "Thanks so much for helping me in the show tonight, young man," or something like that. And so it was always fun going on this train ride. I couldn't even tell you where the train went now. Most of the train tracks, if not all of them in the back, are kind of gone now. I couldn't even tell you how long the train ride was, but I remember it was an awful lot of fun. And it was just one of the many things about here that was just so much fun. So really, there you have it, Pioneer Town. It still looks very good. As I mentioned, it's gotten a makeover in the last couple of years, so it looks, I don't want to say new, because it's not supposed to look new, right? It's supposed to look old. It's supposed to look pioneerish. But anyway, it looks really, really nice. And it kind of does make me sad that when you walk around here at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, there's nobody else up here a lot of the time. Whereas back in the 70s, you felt like you were in a shopping mall. There was all these people walking around. So, a great memory, and in lieu of everything that has happened with the floods, I think I can speak for so many people that have a long history with this place that we're hoping and praying that the 7A will stay around in some capacity, stay in business, still be here, to where we can continue to enjoy this place. It kind of surprised me when I came back here a few years ago with my young family to find out how much my kids actually loved it up here. And of course, these are kids that were born on the internet and Wi-Fi, and I remember thinking they're going to be bored stiff here, but they actually really love it here. And it just seems like most people just automatically love it when they came here. So to the Sekas clan and to anybody else who's working here, our thoughts and prayers go out to you guys. Stay strong. Keep the good attitude. We really hope that you guys can stay. And if anything, just sort of always keep in mind that your family has brought so much joy and happiness to so many families over the last 60 some odd years. And if anything, that in itself is something to be proud of. So a great place, and let's hope it stays for many, many more years. All right. Bye, everybody.